Thank you, Donna. I'm really pleased to be here today. My name is Krista Egger. I'm Director of Enterprise Green Community Partners. And today's session is Affordable Green Homes with DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program. And we're really thrilled to be bringing you all additional information and expertise about the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program and how it pairs well with our Enterprise Green Communities certification program so that you all have access to guidance and resources and expertise about improving the energy efficiency and overall performance of the affordable homes that you all are shepherding. For those of you who might not be aware, Enterprise Community Partners is a national nonprofit based in the affordable housing space. We've been around for about 35 years and work through capital, policy, and programmatic solutions to improve the quality of people who live in affordable housing across the country. Our Green Communities program is an initiative designed to bring the benefits of a green economy to people with low and moderate income. And our certification program to our Enterprise Green Communities criteria is really our flagship program within our Green Communities initiative, which is a whole building certification program for the affordable housing sector. It includes 8 different categories of criteria, and the certification program is a holistic one, which includes energy and water and healthy building materials, et cetera, which I'll show you in just a moment. We have over 100,000 units in our pipeline across the country, certified projects in 39 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, and others in the pipeline in additional states. The categories of our criteria you see here on your screen. There are 8 different categories. We start with integrative design, because we know that the actual process of planning how you're going to approach a holistic green performance in your property is critical to success. Then we have location and neighborhood fabric, which deals with where you're siting your property and the environmental and economic and well-being characteristics that connotes to your residents. Then we move to site improvements, which includes characteristics such as irrigation and landscaping and erosion control. Then water conservation, energy efficiency, materials, healthy living environment, which includes everything from radon control to mitigating lead hazards in buildings that you're rehabilitating, to ventilation, to active design. And then we close out with our final category, which is operations, maintenance, and resident engagement, because we want to make sure that your team is prepared to maintain your building in a green manner so that the objectives that you set out during that integrative design process are really realized while the property is placed in service. And today, we're going to hear about DOE's Zero Energy Ready Homes program and really get into the details of how those of you who are intimately familiar with green communities can improve the performance of your building through a dual certification by following DOE's guidance, or vice versa. Those of you that are familiar with DOE's Zero Energy Ready Homes program can think about a holistic green building program certification through Enterprise Green Communities. So I'm really thrilled to be joined today by Sam Rashkin, who is the Chief Architect in the Building Technologies Office at DOE, and Jamie Lyons of Newport Partners, who's the Technical Director for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program, who are going to walk us through all of the details of their program, and we'll be calling out specific points where green communities and Zero Energy Ready Homes have means of overlap, and we'll be happy to answer your questions at the end of today's webinar so that you all are prepared to achieve these higher levels of performance in your homes. So with that, Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Krista. Welcome, everyone. We're really going to go through Zero Energy Ready Homes in two parts today. I'm going to do the easy fluff part about the basic building blocks and how we translate those building blocks to consumers and to the market at large. I'm going to let Jamie do the hard part, walk you through the detailed requirements that you need to address to align with the Green Communities program. So to start, I'm going to go in the first section. Let's see if this works. So Donna, I'm hitting the arrow for the slides, and I have the presenter, and it's still not, maybe this works.
That should work. Sometimes that arrow is a little tricky because it's very small.
There we go. To say it's tricky is an understatement, but there we go. So we're on the building blocks, and let's start with where we all begin. We have to build a code enclosure, and in reality, the code enclosure has gotten pretty good. It's almost what I would call an advanced enclosure, much better insulated, good windows, very good air sealing, so we have a great start. But the reality of the code is that it's a 3-year cycle, and most parts of the country on a 2009 International Energy Conservation Code are likely to move to the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code in a very short time. And so what we recognize is that it's really important to get it right when you build a home the first time. It's very hard to change a home. And so we want to make our homes future ready by optimizing the enclosure to the next code cycle that's officially on the books. So if the 2012 code or 2015 or 18, depending on what market you're in, is officially developed and ready to be scheduled for implementation, what an opportunity it is for homeowners to have a house that's future ready, that meets or exceeds where the codes are going. And that includes insulation levels, window performance, and how well we protect our homes with air sealing. So that's the first building block, is to make the house future ready. The second building block recognizes that even code homes and now optimized enclosure homes have no tolerance for drying. They're so well insulated that the drying potential with so much less thermal energy going through the assembly is substantially diminished, if not completely removed. So we need a moisture-ready wall assembly. No longer can we get away with details that would let some moisture into the assemblies, because now they can create higher risk of potential dry rot or mold conditions. So we want a house that's moisture-ready. The third building block is that we want a house that's comfort-ready. And heating and cooling are a great start, but too often, if not most of the time, systems are not installed to manufacturer specifications, and they don't address the unique constraints when you have a very low load, low heating, low cooling load home. You have less airflow, you have longer swing seasons, and so we need to provide extra attention to detail so that the homes are comfort ready. So we have a comfort ready building block in each home. And then we have to make these homes health ready. They're built so much more airtight that it's no longer extra credit to reduce the contaminants that are likely to occur in a house. Very tried and true strategy for source control, dilution, filtration, very basic measures can get us into a much better living experience for your homeowners. So we want a house that's health ready. The fifth building block recognizes that now more than half the energy use in the home is for non-heating, cooling, water heating loads. And so the other components throughout the house, the fans, the appliances, the lighting, need to also be addressed for energy efficient construction. And in addition, those energy efficient choices will often lead to greater durability, products that perform better. So we want a house that's tech ready throughout our homes. And the last building block is the house now is so efficient, has such a small remaining requirement for energy. We want to do simple low-cost, no-cost details in locations where you have a good solar resource so that solar can be added in the future and provide the opportunity for a homeowner to effectively go to a zero energy consumption, a house that's zero ready. So these are our 6 building blocks. So the question would be, how do we translate these 6 building blocks to our constituents and to our stakeholders and to our investors? Why are we doing this? And so what I'd like to do before I hand off to Jamie is walk you through how we do a basic translation. And even though this message is designed for the mainstream market, what I will do is add language that reflects the particularly powerful connection between zero energy ready performance and a low-income household need. And so we'll do that, and then I'll hand off to Jamie. And the other thing I'll mention is that there's a whole suite of marketing resources and other kinds of information that we provide on the website that build on this translation and provide lots of ways for you to communicate. And I'll just simply walk you through this translation and let you know that we'll give you a list at the very end of where to get those resources. So the message begins, this is the home of the future today. And buying a home is often the largest purchase of a lifetime, with so much writing on getting it right. And now editorializing, in particular, so much writing on getting it right for affordable households. They spend more than the average household on energy, where the average household may spend 6 or 8% of their income on energy. Low-income households spend 20 to 30%. On top of that, where regular households have more disposable income for health bills, low-income households often defer health bills and need a healthier living opportunity in their homes. And where most households can afford regular maintenance, affordable households have less resources to spend on maintenance. And where regular households really bank on appreciation and realize appreciation on their homes at a very high level, it's an equally important opportunity that even low-income households should have, that their homes should have more value in the future. And all the decisions that you make on the front end will affect all those costs. And for low-income households, the choice you make will affect it for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations of families that live in these homes. And there's so much writing on it right because it's often cost prohibitive to make substantial changes once a home is built. This is just the reality. Once you set the wall assembly choices, once you pick a foundation choice, once you make choices on how to equip a home, how you lay out the duct systems and heating systems, it's very hard to make changes. And no one can afford to make those changes less than low-income households. Wouldn't it be great to know what leading experts will look for in a new home that performs to their expectations? And even low-income households should have the opportunity to get the choice that leading experts would choose. Well, now you do. When building performance professionals are polled, they overwhelmingly choose homes that meet Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready home specifications. That's because leading experts know that every certified Zero Energy Ready home includes 7 must-have systems that ensure a superior homeowner experience. Optimized thermal protection that meets or exceeds future codes, so you're protecting your investment and getting a better experience every day in the house in a home that's future ready. Whole house water protection, so that you have a home where you know that you're moisture ready. And the biggest single most concern that homeowners have is that they won't have the cost of having to fix homes that have moisture issues. Advanced heating and cooling, floor by floor, room by room, knowing that the important details that are so often missing in comfort systems are now installed so the house is comfort ready. High efficient components throughout the house that last longer, work better, are more durable, so your home is tech ready. Comprehensive indoor air quality, so that you and your family can breathe better every day, knowing your house is health ready. Solar ready construction, so that you know that there's minimal to no disruption or cost penalty anytime in the future. You would like to get your utility bill down to 0, so your house is zero ready. And enhanced quality assurance with additional checklists, inspections, testing, diagnostics, and third-party verification that you can now count on your house being performance ready. And don't low-income households deserve all those must-have systems? And maybe most significantly, leading experts know all this added value may increase monthly mortgage expenses compared to a minimum code home, but significant monthly utility bill savings can result in lower true cost. And no one needs lower true cost, more disposable income than low-income households. In other words, leading experts know buying smart is as easy as looking for the DOE Zero Energy Ready home label. So this is a one-stop shop. You get all those 7 must-have systems if you simply specify this label. So that's those are the building blocks. That's what we think is a powerful message, and that's also what I think is an incredible connection between what we're doing and truly delivering on the promise of affordable housing. And I love the new term that's now becoming the go-to term for affordable housing, attainable housing. And not only attainable, but maintainable and sustainable, because the low-income households will be able to keep themselves living in these homes and afford the incredible lower cost of operation. So with that, I hand it off to Jamie.
Great. Thank you, Sam. And thanks to everybody for spending part of your afternoon with us here. So as Sam alluded to, I'll dig in a bit and try to help us understand, as we look at these two programs, what does it look like if we look through the lens of an enterprise green community project and understand what additional measures, if any, are needed to get that dual certification that Krista mentioned. And so at the outset, we heard about the sort of the scope and the breadth of green communities. We see that over here on the left side. Over on the right side, we see the scope and what's covered under the DOE ZERH Energy Ready Home program. So just at first glance, I spend a lot of my time helping our partners, helping developers, builders, consultants, and so forth understand our program, and in many cases understand our program relative to others. And in this particular case, the gap between a green communities project and ZERH Ready is quite small and manageable. So that's only half the equation. The other half is understanding, okay, so what are the differences? What do they look like, and where do they exist? So sort of at the high-level view, we often present ZERH Energy Ready Home with this kind of stair-step concept. So over on the left side, you see the 2012 IECC home, and then we step up to Energy Star version 3 or 3.1, and you can see that ushers in some really important measures for better performance and better efficiency. We have a third-party independent verification now. We have complete water management, and we have a quality installed HVAC system, which includes ventilation. And then if we go all the way over to the right side, you can see the far right column is ZERH Energy Ready Home. And there's two things to notice. The first is that the yellow boxes are where ZERH Ready goes above and beyond Energy Star. But then the second is to notice that there's a really solid common foundation between Energy Star and ZERH Ready Home. And I'm trying to hit that little arrow. There we go. It's important to note that Energy Star foundation that we have is shared with green communities because, like ZERH Ready, Energy Star Homes is a prerequisite for ZERH Energy Ready Homes. So we'll often lead off a technical training by telling our partners, if you're already building to Energy Star, you're roughly 70%, 75% of the way to ZERH Energy Ready Homes. So right out of the gate at square one, green communities would have that big head start towards ZERH Ready simply by virtue of the projects already being compliant with Energy Star Homes. So we'll break this down into, I think we have 9 sections to sort of break down the specs between the two programs and understand what that crosswalk might look like. So we'll start just with what buildings can participate in the programs. It's a pretty similar scope. On the left side here, we see that enterprise covers the single-family realm as well as low and high-rise multifamily, new construction, as well as categories for moderate and substantial rehabs. On the right side, it's a very similar scope, but with ZERH Ready topping out at those multifamily buildings up to 5 stories. Central HVAC and hot water is permissible. So the key takeaway here is that most green communities project types would be eligible for DOE ZERH Ready, with the notable exception of the high-rise category. So that's likely a large portion of projects would have eligible building types that fit to the scope of ZERH Ready program. Next, how efficient? What's the efficiency threshold for the two programs? So Enterprise, by virtue of requiring ENERGY STAR homes, that gets you a pretty good HERS value, using the HERS index as a proxy for efficiency, somewhere in the mid-60s. And then on the right side, we see DOE ZERH Ready. It's going to be a tick lower, generally in the mid to low 50s for a building or a home to qualify. So the takeaway here is that there'll be some room to make up in the HERS index, roughly 3 to 10 points. If a project is already going above and beyond green communities, it may already have those points in hand. But if not, it can pick up those points in a number of different ways, and we'll look at some of those in the next few minutes. And then specifically, there's a call out within Green Communities Provision 5.2b, if you happen to have it handy, calling out Zero Ready as one of a number of additional certifications which would earn 12 additional efficiency points within the enterprise framework. Third item, I'm just sort of going in order of the Zero Ready specifications, how they're listed. We looked at ENERGY STAR homes. It gives us a really solid building science basis for the building or the home, so we know that the heat and the air and the moisture dynamics will work well. The building will work well as a system, and that's part and parcel with Enterprise Green Communities, which has the really the same provision. So in this case, we have full alignment. Both programs are right on par with each other, fully aligned. Next, we'll look at the building envelope. Again, ENERGY STAR, the envelope requirements are sort of embedded in the fact that projects need to meet ENERGY STAR homes requirements. DOE Zero Ready, one of the core value propositions is that these buildings and these homes are forward-looking. They're built to be future-ready. So we want to build to the latest energy code provisions for the building envelope. For right now, that means 2012 or 2015 IECC insulation levels, which are pretty good. They're a step up from 2009. And we also want the windows to be fairly good and anchored to different ENERGY STAR requirements for the windows. So the takeaway here is that green community projects to meet Zero Ready would need to have envelope levels that meet the 2012 or the 2015 energy code levels. If you're not familiar, the 12 and the 15 energy code have identical insulation levels, so we can list them interchangeably here. And by stepping up to these higher insulation levels, there are additional points available under the green communities criteria. And in many cases, the minimum code in an area will also require 12 or 15 IECC insulation levels. There's quite a few states now that have one of those two codes on their books. Just to give you a sense of what the window specs look like for the DOE Zero Ready program, it's laid out on this slide. So if, for example, we're in climate zone 3 here in this middle column, the window U factor would be a 0.3 or lower. The solar heat gain would be a 0.25 or lower. And it varies by climate zone, but these are all window types which are readily available, very cost effective to use. For the most part, they're all double glazing. There's nothing in here driving projects to go with triple glazed windows at this point. Duct systems. We spend a lot of time talking with our partners about ducts. And if you think about it, the envelope's getting better, the mechanicals are getting better. There's a few pieces that start to emerge as the weak links in the whole building or the whole system. And ducts can be one of those. So within green communities, it's recommended that ducts be located within conditioned spaces. Within the Zero Ready program, we've taken a really hard look at this. And so we require what we call optimized locations. And that can mean either the duct is completely within conditioned space, or we have several prescriptive pathways where the ducts are going to be well air sealed, they're going to be well insulated, and sometimes they're located sort of embedded within the thermal envelope, so they're not completely inside, but they're not outside. They've been modeled and tested by DOE and its research to be almost as good as ducts completely within conditioned space. And we've done that because this is a really important system, and we want a whole bucket full of solutions for builders depending on the building style, depending on the foundation type, and so on. So this is a requirement for Zero Ready to get those ducts into an optimized location. So we're no longer suffering these enormous energy penalties by blowing our cooling air through super hot attics or blowing our heating air through very cold unconditioned spaces. So when an enterprise project can achieve an optimized duct location that checks the box for Zero Ready, and then along with that, I think it's important to know you'll pick up comfort benefits and indoor air quality benefits by virtue of a more opportune duct location. Next, item 6 will focus on the hot water distribution. Here, I think both programs are very closely aligned with enterprise pointing to this WaterSense efficient hot water distribution spec as an optional measure, and Zero Ready pointing to the exact same measure within WaterSense, however, presenting it as a requirement. And generally what this is going to mean is a more efficient hot water layout, which is going to be on-demand recirculation, or it could be a compact layout, or it could be a structured plumbing system like a manifold with home run lines to each of those fixtures. And then we do note that the Zero Ready program also has modified this spec for central systems in multifamily buildings. We've tailored the provision a little bit to be a little better suited for central hot water in multifamily buildings. So the takeaway here, we have an optional provision if enterprise projects can implement that provision. Again, it will satisfy the requirement on the Zero Ready side. And then really the upshot is for each and every dwelling unit that has a more efficient plumbing layout, instead of waiting a minute or minute and a half or 2 minutes for hot water, it's going to arrive in 15, 20, 25 seconds. That equates to better performance, better comfort, and for each and every dwelling unit, thousands of gallons per year that we're no longer just seeing washed down the drain while we wait for hot water. So this is a very impactful measure once it's implemented. Next item is lighting and appliances. Again, there's really good alignment between both programs on this measure. I'll sort of cut to the chase here so we don't have to read all these provisions. We did add the details to the slide, though, so they can kind of stand alone if people want to review them later. The takeaway is that there's very good alignment. The one little nuance here is on the enterprise green community side, the lighting is called out to be high efficacy, and it's based on this lumens per watt metric, which is great. On the DOE Zero Ready side, the lighting is called out as Energy Star qualified lighting, which includes an efficacy measure, but it also includes a few additional items like the lumen maintenance over time and the CRI, the color rating index. A few different measures that you get with an Energy Star certification on light. For the most part, products which meet Energy Star will certainly have the lumens per watt required on the green community side. The Energy Star label gives you a little more assurance on the performance of the fixture or the bulb. And obviously, Energy Star lighting is widely available in the marketplace. This next one, we're going to get into the indoor air quality area, and there's several subsections to this which we'll look at on a slide-by-slide basis. So moisture control obviously is a major component of IAQ, and there's a provision within enterprise green communities here for the vapor retarder to be located as a capillary break beneath the slab. On the DOE Zero Ready side of the ledger, is a very similar provision, so there's good alignment there. There are a few additional requirements for moisture control, some sort of common sense items here which are listed. To use a sump pump in basements or crawls. If a building or home is lacking gutters, then there's some splash protection added by the foundation. And if we're in the moist section of the country, climate zone A, if we have a basement or a crawl, that we insulate and air seal at the perimeter wall, again in the interest of moisture control in the foundation area. So a few additional measures for moisture control for DOE Zero Energy Ready Home. Next, under IAQ still, we'll look at radon. And this is one where we have really good alignment. Enterprise Green Communities 7.8 is a mandatory provision, and it points to this radon standard, ARST, for single-family construction. On the DOE side, the Indoor Air Plus program, which is a prerequisite for our program, that's where we obtain our indoor air quality measures, points to the same standard by AARST, ARST. So really good alignment there, both pointing to the same radon mitigation standard. And we do want to just note that IAP, the Indoor Air Plus program, is likely to also reference in the near future the standard ARST CC 1000, whose scope includes multifamily buildings. So it's a little bit more tailored for multifamily construction. Just a note for general information there. Next item under IAQ is pest control. You hear somebody with a quick finger on their camera and on their IR camera caught some of the fuzzy invaders here within a building. But again, on this item, this is a code minimum item. Both programs point to it as a mandatory. Let's simply add the screening at opening so we don't have any kind of pest infestation into the building, so there's full alignment. Also under IAQ, there's some HVAC provisions, again, to make sure the HVAC system is designed and installed effectively to manage indoor air quality. So both programs deal with the topic of isolating the garage. Both programs deal with proper venting of dryers to outdoors, and both of them speak to supplemental dehumidification in humid climates. Where any gap or difference might be, we call out here in the center of the slide, where the Zero Ready program requires a few additional measures, which again are pretty low impact, low cost, common sense. For our ductwork, we want to have some protection during the construction cycle so it doesn't become a little mini trash can and get filled up with debris and rubbish. Building cavity ducts are disallowed under DOE's program as well as the IAP program, and that's actually built into the code now, the energy code, I believe effective in 2012 and later, so that's a code provision in many places. And for filtration, we look for a MERV 8 filter, a little bit better than the standard, and it can enhance the indoor air quality in the residence. And then lastly, as we note down at the bottom, if we find a project in that hot, humid, that southeast corner of the country, dehumidification is required for those projects. And it can be supplemental dehumidification with additional equipment, or it can be humidity-based controls on the central cooling system. Either one is accepted. Still in the IAQ area, we'll talk a minute about combustion safety. Again, both programs have fairly similar provisions in this area with a lot of overlap. Again, there's a few additional measures for Zero Ready Home addressing, really prohibiting unvented combustion space heating appliances to be installed. There's a smoking policy required for the common spaces in multifamily buildings. Enterprise has a very similar provision, but it's optional, so Zero Ready just requires that provision. And then there's isolation of attached garages. If we have a single family type project with an attached garage, there's two ways to demonstrate that we have a really good air seal on the garage. And it can either be a blower door diagnostic, or it can be the option to add a garage exhaust fan, which will pull air out of the garage to outside, so garage pollutants can't find their way into the building space. This only comes into play in single family if our ventilation system for the home is exhaust-based and we have an attached garage. So a lot of projects under Enterprise's umbrella probably wouldn't have those scenarios playing out just that way. One of our last items under IAQ is the low emission materials, and this is a big one. It's really important. The air sealing on these units, whether they're single family or multifamily, is simply getting better and better, which is great, but we do want to avoid installing products which off-gas emissions in the air, whether they're VOCs or formaldehydes, things that we don't want the residents exposed to. So both programs deal with pressed wood products, with paints, with cabinets, and with carpet and padding. That's the good news. As we looked at a crosswalk of these, there's a little bit of alphabet soup in the third-party standards that are referenced. For example, if we look at the paints, Green Communities points to the South Coast Air Quality Management District, that nice long acronym there, and points to its VOC limits on paints as a suitable measure to specify good paints. On the DOE side of things, Indoor Air Plus references 6 third-party standards, but they actually don't include South Coast VOC limits. So there's a little bit of bookkeeping here in paints, for example, to make sure that a low VOC paint would be able to check the box for both programs. In other cases, like carpets, which is down here at the bottom, the third bullet, the two programs line up really well, where they both point to Carpet and Rug Institute, CRI, Green Label, or Green Label Plus. So the overall takeaway in this area of low emission materials is just to lay out the specs for the products that are being considered and line them up against Green Communities and line them up against Indoor Air Plus, just to make sure they're compliant on both counts. There should be a lot of overlap, but it's something to check up front in that design process.
And Jamie, I should mention just that we're working with the Indoor Air Plus program to see if we can create some better recommendations and solutions that clean this up a little bit.
Great point. Yeah, as we were looking at this, sometimes the alphabet soup exists for a reason, sometimes it can be reduced and things can be more streamlined and consolidated. So that was our recommendation, to at least look at that. And along the same lines, 2 or 3 years ago, our partners within the Zero Ready program were having some difficulty just sorting through all these third-party specs and understanding where to look and what labels that their products needed to have. And so in response to that, Indoor Air Plus created a really nice Cliff Notes document on how to find and specify low emission materials that meet the specs. And we can make that available to like a 3 or 4 pager that our partners found really helpful in streamlining the process of acquiring low emission products. And then the last item under IAQ is the commissioning, home commissioning. Again, we have really good alignment between the two. The intent here is clearly to help the resident understand what's in the building and how to use, how to understand the IAQ provisions and systems within the building. So the Green Communities manuals certainly line up and meet the requirement on the Zero Ready side to provide some buyer or resident information. In addition, there's a few additional items that are required for commissioning on the Zero Ready side, and they're listed over here, these 3 sub-bullets. There's a duct inspection to simply see that the ducts are clean at the completion of construction, that they're not filled with trash or debris. Same thing on the filters, make sure we don't have a totally caked up filter when the building is completed, but rather a clean and new filter. And then, to the extent possible, providing some post-construction ventilation to flush out the building. And moving right ahead. So the last technical category we'll talk through here is the PV readiness, Renewable Ready. Again, the programs are both thinking along the same wavelength here. Green Communities has an optional provision to orient, design, engineer, and wire the development to accommodate PV. And on the DOE ZERH Ready side, it's a little bit more prescriptive. And we'll actually look at those measures, I think, on the next slide. But the takeaway is that if a project does follow the ZERH Ready provisions for PV readiness, they should earn for these optional points that are available on the Green Community side. The actual prescriptive PV Ready provisions are shown here. So it's things like making sure we have the load ratings on the roof system available and part of the building information that's handed off to the owner, so they have them and can use those for a future PV installation. It's running conduit from the roof area down to the service panel area. Providing some dedicated space near the electric panel where we can later tie in the balance of the system, things like the inverter. It's running a conduit from that balance of system area over to the service panel. And then it's including a circuit breaker, either a slot or a designated slot for the future where the PV system would tie in. There's some sort of common sense allowances as well. If a building has extreme shading or it doesn't have enough south-facing roof, or if it's in an area of the country that doesn't have adequate solar resources on an annual basis, and we have a map that partners can reference to see where they stand, then the PV Ready provisions aren't mandatory requirements. We do have a lot of builders that do them anyway. They might be in a marginal PV area. The things that we just looked at, those prescriptive measures, are really pretty easy and no-cost, low-cost items to do. So in many cases, our builders or developers choose to make the buildings PV ready in any case. And then down here at the bottom, relative to multifamily, we certainly recognize it might not be cost-effective or make sense to make every dwelling in a multifamily building PV ready. So we have an allowance that the PV ready features can be tied into a common space electrical panel instead of every individual dwelling unit. Just a couple items here about getting started. For partners and developers and others in the industry that think this dual certification path may be of interest, we like to point out to our partners that, again, if you know Energy Star, that's a huge head start in understanding this landscape. It's the same raters, same consultants really that would assist a project with the plan review, with the modeling, with the site inspections. As far as the modeling goes, the same modeling which would be used for Energy Star and for Green Communities to rate a project and develop the HERS index, the same software which would be used for ZERH Ready. It's all integrated into the same software. And as I said, the same plan review and site inspection protocol. So in a way, Energy Star, Green Communities, ZERH Ready all stair-step very well with each other. And just as far as the general process for builders and verifiers to become involved with ZERH Ready, there's a simple online partnership agreement on the website, which we'll see here in a minute. There's no need actually to pre-register projects with the DOE program. Obviously, a very important component of Green Communities is the integrated design process. We highly recommend that as well. Our partners who are most successful, this is a staple of their processes design. Bring the rater into that certainly and use the rater for both the plan review, the site inspections, and there's sampling available for multifamily projects where we have dwelling units repeated over and over again. We can sample them. And then the way the project certification works for ZERH Energy Ready is that the rater simply sends a compliance report, which is generated by the modeling software, that's sent to DOE. In the very near future, we're transitioning over to having all the all the compliance for Zero Ready built into the ResNet registry, so the rater will simply work with a registry to submit a project, and DOE will pull the records out of the registry. So that's in the very near future. We're in the midst of making that change. So as we open it up for some questions, I'll just leave it on this slide for the time being. Here's the website for the DOE Zero Ready program, where it's sort of the landing page for becoming a partner, to review, download and review the program specs. We have an online tour of Zero, which is a very consumer-friendly virtual tour of dozens and dozens of Zero Energy Ready homes all around the country. We have 24 plus recorded webinars covering quite a few technical topics, and they're given by industry experts. It also gets into sales and marketing of Zero Energy Ready homes. There's a marketing toolkit and a really rich resource for designers and engineers and consultants, the Building America Solutions Center. And then lastly, just down at the bottom, we note that behind the slide deck that we just went through, if you want a sort of a comprehensive written reference where you can see a little more detail, we'll have this gap analysis between green communities and Zero Ready finalized and posted on our site within a month. So that'll be available to everyone as well. So with that, Krista and Shelby, we'd be happy to field questions and discussion.
Great. Thanks so much, Jamie and Sam. That was a great overview. And just, to reiterate, certification to the Zero Energy Ready Homes program is an option that's built into the Enterprise Green Communities program if projects are interested in achieving points in the energy efficiency category that will help them meet their whole building point total for Green Communities certification. And the overlap, as Jamie has explained here, goes well beyond energy efficiency, touching on ventilation and moisture management and a number of other topics. So they're very well aligned, and we'd really encourage project teams that are pursuing green communities that are of a construction type that's eligible for Zero Energy Ready homes to pursue this option to achieve even higher levels of performance. So thanks so much to both of you. Donna, do you want to guide us through any questions that have been submitted so far?
Absolutely. We've gotten some questions about whether the slides will be available, and the answer to that is yes. We're going to be sending a link to all attendees within 48 hours, and it will have not only a link to the slides, but also to the recording in case you missed any part of it or simply want to review. And just encouraging for you to type your questions into the Q&A box, which is on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, just a reminder that this session has been recorded, as you know, and the link will come out. And also, when you leave the session today, you will be taken to a very brief, I promise you, very brief evaluation form that we would greatly appreciate getting your feedback on. It really does help us with our live online event series.
And for those of you that are logged on today, I'd like to have you all be the first to know that we'll soon be sending out an invitation to join another webinar with Jamie and Sam on November 20th, so that's Thanksgiving week, about the Building America Solutions Center, which provides a wealth of resources that can help you and your contractors and your trades and your architects and engineers and your project teams access detailed information about how to implement different design and construction strategies that can help you be successful with these programs. So be on the lookout for that coming to your email box soon.
Great. Thank you, Krista. And, well, I think everybody was very thorough today. We don't have a single other question in the queue. Oh, one just came in. Two came in. Great. Let's see if we can get these in. The first question is, can you highlight some funding opportunities or incentives that either or both of these programs would enable?
You know, it depends on location. There's some states like New Jersey, I believe, that have substantial incentive given out of the, I forget what the program name is there, and California has a program called the California Advanced Home Program where projects like Zero Energy Ready Home will earn points and incentives in that state. So it's on a case-by-case basis, different markets and localities. You have to check to see what might be there. So, and Jamie, I don't know if you have any more recommendations on this.
Yeah, also on a location basis, a handful of states recognize the Zero Ready program within their the qualified allocation plan to a much lesser extent than green communities. But in some cases, there may be additional points or credits available for projects that not only meet green communities but also meet Zero Energy Ready Home.
I'll also throw in that there's some utility programs like in Connecticut and I think Rhode Island and a few other states where the utilities also have incentive rebates that they provide for these projects as well.
Now I'll just add that green communities is included in more than half the state's qualified allocation plans for properties that are pursuing low-income housing tax credits as an incentive or a requirement. HUD also has a mortgage interest pricing break for properties that certify to green communities and a number of other whole building programs. That's a financial incentive that's been designed to give you more loan proceeds than the cost of actually implementing these higher construction standards. So that's an incentive you might be interested in checking out if that type of financing is relevant for your project. Fannie Mae also has, for the multifamily sector, a green pricing break for properties that certify to the program.
The other thing I'll mention is Jamie talked about the Tour of Zero, and there's a lot of affordable housing projects that are featured on the Tour of Zero. Some of them with Habitat for Humanity, others with groups like United Way and other affordable housing organizations. And I would suggest you look at the affordable housing projects because you'll see that the energy savings over a 30-year mortgage are quantified, and they can range from like $30,000 to $100,000 of savings. And so the other big incentive is just the fact that the money that comes back to the owners is really real significant money. Over a mortgage, the fact is that that's a $30,000 to maybe $100,000 penalty in terms of just the energy burden that's added to the house. And we also mentioned there are health burdens and maintenance burdens and resale cost opportunity that's lost. So beyond the incentives, we have to really be conscious that there already is a built-in incentive, which is the monthly cash flow on these homes can be very positive.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, what's the best way to determine the average cost of housing provided by builders noted on the DOE site? I'm wondering how we can begin to explore that affordability consideration in Cleveland.
Wow, what a great question! Because we're not given the cost of housing to feature on the statistics on the Tour of Zero. We have the features that are included. We have the I mentioned the energy savings and HERS index numbers and things like that. But often the cost data is fairly proprietary. What I will say, though, is to look at the impressive array of homes and the fact that they are often, there's a great representation by affordable housing projects where you have very, very strict cost constraints that have to be met, and that such an impressive array of projects are showing they can meet these cost numbers and still achieve the program specification. but I don't know any places where you get the actual specific cost data for these projects unless there's some special articles featuring that. And Jamie, again, you may have a better recommendation than I do.
No, I guess my one addition to that comment, Sam, would be the cost question is always important, and it's brought up in most of our discussions. And from my experience, it depends so much on the baseline. It's tempting to compare a green communities building or a zero energy ready building to the bare minimum code. Normally that's a really extreme way to assess any marginal cost because few buildings are really built to the bare minimum code. If that's the case, then that really would be the true cost, but we see that happen for cost estimates, or we see another variation where a builder will actually track their costs and they come up with a number, but they overshoot what the program really requires. They get a much lower HERS score than necessary. They add a lot of PV to the rooftop, which may make all the sense in the world, but it's not required by the Zero Ready program. So it's very tricky to get dialed in representative cost numbers. We do on the website have a document which is an energy savings and added cost estimate, which we prepared several years ago to try to tackle this question. And so we modeled 2 homes. They were single-family homes, granted. There were 2 homes modeled, both for their energy performance as well as an estimate of the added cost. One is in climate zone 3, one's in climate zone 5. And we had 2 baselines. One was a 2009 code baseline, the other was a 2012 code baseline. I want to say the added cost compared to the 2012 code baseline, which is a little higher bar, so we don't have as far to travel at that point, was roughly $2,000 to $3,000 for a single-family unit, 2,200, 2,400 square feet in size. So that's a rough estimate that you can start with. That number would probably be reduced for multifamily, certainly. It gives you just a sense of magnitude that you can work with. And then when we compare that cost against the savings, as Sam mentioned, there's a net monthly savings. So the added cost compared to the savings results in being in the black. So there's this net savings that accrues over the life of the building.
And just adding one more wrinkle to this, and everyone hates it when you get the cost question. It always appears the answer is it depends, and because it's truly the answer. But one of the big it depends factors that's maybe most significant is that our cost analysis didn't assume any lesson learned experience that affords often very significant cost reductions. So if you talk to the Zero Energy Ready Home partners over and over again, if you ask them what their experience is with costs, with burden, with challenges in the program, the amount that all those experiences decrease substantially is great. And so you really learn to do this kind of construction. You know, invariably what happens the first time is your trade contractors are having to learn something different, or your suppliers have to change, but things quickly become a different cost number once you nail down the process. So it comes down to whether you're committed to wanting to deliver this experience versus a typical code home experience to your constituents, and then making the effort to get past those learning curves. So that's, you know, all this makes this such a complicated topic.
And I'll add, from the green community side, the last cost analysis we did was about 5 years ago, and we looked at the actual cost of building and certifying to the Green Communities program versus what quote-unquote standard construction was in that area. And on average, we found about a 2% increase for green communities built homes compared to total development costs. It was a little bit more than that for rehab, a little bit less than that for new construction. and the simple payback was about 5.5 years. So just to reiterate what Sam and Jamie were saying, there is a learning curve because most of the measures that are required by these programs have to do with actually how you're building your homes, in some cases more so than what you're building your homes with. So that learning curve in terms of changing of behavior, in terms of how you're designing and building your homes, does take a little bit of investment and, you know, trial and error the first time or two that you go through this, but savings accrue to a large extent after that, after you've gone past that learning curve as well. So.
Great. Thank you, Krista. We are at time, so Krista, do you have any final wrap-up words for us?
I'd just like to thank Sam and Jamie again, and if any of you all who have signed on today have questions about either the technical details of either of these programs or the actual certification process, we'd be happy to follow up with you offline. So good luck in all of your home design and construction efforts, and we look forward to touching base with you again soon.
Thanks, Krista. Thank you, Sam and Jamie, and thank you to our attendees for joining us today. We hope to see you online soon at another Enterprise Live Online event. Goodbye.